All right, welcome back. I have a very special guest here with me today. I have UFC fighter Cody Stamann, who's been in the likes of the former champ Aljamain Sterling and many other notable fighters. Um, it's a pleasure to have you today, fellow Michigander. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk to you. I have a lot of questions lined up for you to that I think will pick your brain a little bit. And if you're ready to get started, so am I.
I'm ready, dude.
All right. So, first question I have for you, more like a prompt, is kind of tell me about your upbringing and how that led you to get into fighting.
Like a lot of fighters, I grew up in a small town. Unlike a lot of fighters, I didn't really have necessarily like a rough childhood. I actually had two parents that loved me very much, were super supportive of me, throughout my whole life, in every sport that I did. And, I think I was just one of those people that, was had a little bit extra in terms of like aggression and like competitiveness. I've always had, I could think back to like playing like t-ball as a little kid. Like if like I didn't do something well, like I was pissed. Like I'd throw my mitt, I'd throw the bat, like I'd throw a tantrum. Like as a little kid,
Yeah.
and like that, I kind of honed that into you know boxing and wrestling before MMA. Two things that I excelled at. Athletically, that kind of like led me to fighting. But fighting for me was never, it wasn't necessarily like something that I like grew up thinking about or thinking that I would do. I just kind of naturally was like one of those kids that like if you like had an issue with me, like we were gonna fight. Like that's just kind of who I was. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to scrap. So yeah, I think that's the main difference between me and like most guys I hear about. Most guys they have like there's some kind of traumatic experience, and I'm not saying I haven't gone through trauma and stuff, but for me, it's like I actually had like a really good, safe environment to grow up in. I was the fighter. You know what I mean? Like I didn't
Yeah.
have to fight. I fought 'cause I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, going from that aspect and kind of doing a lot of different sports, um, what, how are you initially introduced into doing MMA? Like actually getting in the cage, put on the gloves, and beating somebody up.
So yeah, so that is, I mean, it's just a pretty crazy series of events that had to take place for me to end up fighting. So actually, in 2008, my senior year of high school, I won a Golden Glove state title, and simultaneously was kind of on the path to winning a wrestling state title. And I actually got in a fight with a ref, and not like a physical, not like a physical fight, but I got into like a like I was 27-0, and I was like I wrestled and I lost in overtime, and I was mad because I thought that I basically took a guy down right at the edge of the mat, and I thought that the takedown should be counted, and I kind of got in this verbal argument with a ref. Anyways, and he ends up throwing me out of the tournament, and I got in an argument with my coach, and that got pretty heated, like into a pushing match, and I ended up getting tossed off the team for it. So that kind of like I literally took a full 180 right then, and I boxed as a kid, and I had some boxing experience, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna fight in the gloves. So I was already in really good shape from wrestling,
Right.
and I started boxing, and then that year I won a Golden Glove state title, like first year I'd ever competed in boxing.
Mm.
Like I'd boxed in the gym, but never boxed for real. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed boxing. But again, like I stopped. Like as soon as I won, I was done. And then I was just I grew up in a small town, and like people got to know that like I was a boxer, and like I'm not
Yeah.
a big guy, so people like would mess with me, and like I'm not really the guy that like likes getting messed with. So
as
uh,
as you
so
told me.
I started kind of getting in like a little more often than I should have, like altercations, outside of basically, people say the streets, but really they're just not like anywhere, you know what I mean? But uh yeah, and actually my mom was the one that signed me up. She heard about an MMA gym or saw a sign somewhere, and for my 19th birthday, she bought me a 3-month membership to an MMA gym.
Wow.
And that's literally how it all started. And then I think, geez, maybe three months after that, I was fighting, and then like another fight just kept like it was like I never really intended on doing it,
Mm.
but another fight just kept coming up, another fight, and to the point where I was fighting like every like 3-4 weeks. I was
Wow.
fighting a ton, and like I wasn't fighting like great level like competition or anything, but
Mm.
like I was getting a lot of like in the cage experience, and I just fell in love with it, and I pretty much dropped everything I was doing. I was working and starting to like manage our family business, which is like a restoration construction business.
Mm.
And I just like told my parents, I'm like, yo, I gotta see what I can do with this. And I moved from the west side of Michigan to Detroit. And then yeah, like after that, it was just like fighting just took my life over.
Yeah, it's cool. That's it kind of, it's almost like it flowed, like kind
Yeah,
of just, even though like you said a lot of fighters come from kind of like troubled homes and things like that, even though you didn't come from that, it your life seemed to line up to lead you to fighting, which I
yeah,
think is honestly pretty cool, even as cool as like some like the broken home stories, because people say that like I feel like I was born for this, and it's like a very rugged kind of all over the place kind of path, but you're just
yeah,
smoothish.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a smooth path to fighting. Honestly, like
yeah,
I think you have to experience what it is to be an MMA fighter to really understand like what MMA fighters go through, and
oh yeah,
like I've done a million other sports, right? I played football, I played baseball, I played basketball, I've played every other sport, obviously not the level that I fight at, but
mm,
like like there's just nothing that is like physically and is mentally demanding, mostly mentally demanding is fighting,
oh yeah,
it's just like your pride, your ego, like you're so vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like if you lose a football game and you get, your clock cleaned, you know what I mean? There's 10 other guys to pick you up. Like if you lose a fight, or you're trying to make your way to a place where, people know who you are, it's just so nerve wracking. It just consumes your life. You can't be bothered with like the little everyday problems of life because like you have this huge event coming up, you know what I mean? And there's like a beauty in that. And there's a, like, that's what makes fighting so terrifying is because, like your whole life is dependent on like what you're capable of doing in a handful of minutes, like
yeah,
15 minutes, like this interview is going to be 15 minutes long or more, you know what I mean? And like, that's the amount of time you have to like decide what your future is going to be in this sport, so that's like there's so much pressure and weight, and you have to like you really have to figure out how to like realize that it means everything, you know what I mean? Every single time you get in the cage and every single time you compete, like it means absolutely everything for your career,
yeah,
but you also have to kind of treat it mentally like it means nothing, you can't put
mm,
it up on a pedestal. It's just like something that you do, and that's where it gets hard,
yeah. Even
that's
just you
where,
explaining it like that sounds tricky, because at first I was kind of getting to understand what you mean, and then you like just flipped it back by saying like it means everything, but it also means nothing at the same time. Like that
yeah,
that alone just sounds like a hard mental battle to get past.
it is.
Yeah, I have no doubt. Um, so this diverges off a little bit from that. But it's just like a common Michigan kind of question. So when someone asks you what there is to do in Michigan, what do you say?
uh Well, I always tell them that Michigan is a lot nicer than what they think, like what they haven't imagined. So I grew up on the west side of Michigan, and like, so like we were like, I was big into like going to the beach, when I was growing up,
Oh
because it
yeah,
was only 40 minutes away. So like Grand Haven Beach, like all the beaches on Lake Michigan are really, really beautiful. Like
yeah,
I'm like a big outdoorsman, so like the hunting and fishing in Michigan is pretty top notch compared to like everywhere I've been. We don't realize how like spoiled you are. But I mean, outside of that, it's like every other place I've been. You know what I mean? Like the city's the same. It's really, like really like there's some beautiful places in Michigan, but I mean, for the most part, like when you're not in like one of those like scenic cool places in Michigan, it's pretty much exactly the small town Midwest feel that you would imagine. You know what I mean? Like it's
Oh
exactly
yeah.
what you picture it to be.
Do you know where Grosse Pointe is?
Oh yeah.
That's where I grew up in.
Oh, Gross Point. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, yeah. So there's really nothing to do there other
Yeah,
than
yeah, it's
go
like
to the
exactly.
lake.
Why do you think I was getting in so many fights when I was a kid? Like we just had nothing to do. Like we were just bored. It's like there's not enough women around, so it's like let's fight each other. There's nothing else to do. Like that's Michigan for you. Like there's no like like I live in Las Vegas now, and like there's always like some crazy event, something happening here. There's always like a million things to do, and like I just find myself like really not doing that much stuff because like it's what I'm used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people come to Vegas and like ball out, and like I come to Vegas and like hang out with my dogs and like go to the gym. Same stuff I do anywhere.
Yeah, that's cool to get it from a different perspective because that seems to be a very common answer of people that I ask from Michigan who have, obviously lived there for a while. So I was just curious.
Yeah, Michigan.
um, so another question kind of about a hobby that you have is hunting wise. What are like the main things you go for when you're hunting? Because I personally never hunted before,
Yeah,
but
so I like deer hunting. I like duck hunting.
mm,
Like bird hunting. Those are like the main things. And like hunting is kind of like something that I've done since I was like a little kid. So like my dad's he looks like he's like full Native American, but my dad's like I want to say he's only like 30 or 40%, but he's like a pretty good percentage like Native American. Like he has
yeah,
like all the Native American like features in his face. Um, like the really big ears and like I actually have like the eyes, like the Native American eyes, but like he super native, so like it was like kind of like a family thing. Like we all went hunting and like I've been hunting since I was like literally old enough to like walk in the woods. So like it's kind of like something I grew up doing and like for like mental health and and just like a good hobby. I wouldn't even say it's a hobby. It's kind of like just part of who I am. But um, I don't know. Like if you're like really dedicated to hunting, it's hard to be like a troublemaker and
yeah,
like a because I mean hunting means you have to be super prepared for you know what I mean whatever the weather's going to throw your way. Like you're doing it super super early in the morning, so it's not like you're going out the night before and going to the bar. You know what I mean? Like so like hunting for me like was always something that kind of kept me grounded my whole life. You know what I mean? Like so like right now I'm like dealing with this arm injury right now and like all I can think about is like I just need to like go in nature and just like go hunting and like be a part of that just because that's what I feel like kind of gets me back to like center and that's something I do like after fights before fights you know what I mean like I'm big in like I always go in nature, not always hunting, but like always like go in nature, like before a fight, after a fight, just to kind of like reset my mind and like not get like too high on myself or too low on myself. Just kind of like go back to the root of, how I think people are supposed to live.
is that how you ended up dropping your phone in the creek?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I took my dogs to, Red Rock Canyon. It's like this really, really beautiful place just outside of Las Vegas. And yeah, I went on like a little hike out there and I was like actually just trying to film my dogs like just running around in this creek, and one of my dogs bumped me, and my phone was in the water.
Dang.
Yeah.
Um, so what are your thoughts on bringing family to fights?
I mean, so I personally I don't like bringing family to fights because I think of fighting in like war. Um, so like my family's always kind of been there at all my fights, but also it's hard because now that I live away from my family, like I don't get to see them as much. So like when they're here, or when wherever I am, like I really want to spend time with them, but I'm so utterly focused on like fighting that it's hard to like really get quality time with them. So like
Yeah.
lately I've been kind of telling them like, hey, I'll come home afterwards. Like
Mhm.
don't come here because I think you kind of have to treat it like war. Like
Mhm.
my dad will be there, my brother might be there, but if we were in war, like my dad and my brother would probably be there too, right? Um, but like my mom and sister, I know this sounds like super sexist, but like I don't want them there. I want to know that they're somewhere like safely watching me. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like fighting is like war at this point. You know, I've done it so many times, and I don't think it would like affect me mentally whether they were there or not. Um, just because like I know what I kind of have to do in the cage, but uh, it's like a weird like primal thing. Fighting is, you
Yeah.
know, it's I mean, and everybody's different. Some people want their family there. Some people absolutely their family's not allowed to go there. You
Right.
know, so I think like per individual, but like the way I look at fighting is like I look at it like I'm going to war and like I want just like warriors around me. I don't want anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. That completely makes sense. And I've, seen across the board, people are like, you want to see what, daddy or mom are doing. So they bring their kids there, or, they want their family to support them. Um, I always make a joke with my family. Like, if I ever got into fighting, would you go to my fights? All of my family members say no, except
Yeah,
for my dad. But my dad said if he saw me lose more than twice in a row, he would never go, or he wouldn't go anymore because he wouldn't want to see
yeah.
me.
It's tough. I mean, it's really like, and I don't, you know, I didn't realize how hard it was, you know, like for my family, you know, to like watch like my mom and my dad and everybody. And then, you know, I, yeah, I had like a really, really fast like knockout and like I was still like super like pumped up. This was pretty early in my career, but I was like, you know what I mean? I was like jacked up. Like I've been there was all this build up to like this moment. And then like the first shot I threw, the guy goes down. And I was still like I got out of the cage and I was still kind of feeling like I was just like ready to fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I really hadn't I hadn't like fulfilled my goal yet. And uh you know, I realized like it's like the same thing for my family, you know what I mean? Like their nerves are insane because they have like I have all the control like when I'm inside the cage, you know what I mean? Like I control what happens. Like they're watching somebody they care about and they have no control. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing in like, you know, like throughout my career, you know, I was pretty polished before coming to the UFC, like, you know, in like 40 fights, you know, actually, you know, including boxing matches and stuff, more like kickboxing matches, more like 60 fights. I really only lost once. So like they really had no idea like what like and I really had no idea what it looked like when I lost. You know what I mean? And like so like then you know losing there was one fight where I lost and I came home and I was like my whole family was there and I was just I felt horrible because I could see it like I could see like how sad they were for me and it just made me feel even worse and like it was just like this just horrible thing. I remember that feeling. I remember that feeling. I hold on to it because like I don't ever want to forget that. You know what I mean? Like just knowing, you know, like what it's like, you know, for everyone else, like when you lose, you know, and that's I think that's that's like one of the main things that kind of like motivates me to like want to work hard and like want to do the right things and want to stay disciplined is like just knowing like what I'm putting my family through, like to be able to like, you know, like have this dream of mine. Like I'm putting like everyone that cares about me like through absolute hell. So like I have to like make this count. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely understand that. And that you saying that last part kind of answers what my next question was going to be, which was going to be a segue into after experiencing a loss, how do you get yourself back in the mindset to like meant to get ready for your next fight?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it is really hard. I mean, and like, I know for me, you know, I lost three fights in a row. And like to that point, I hadn't lost three fights in my entire fighting career, like amateur, professional, boxing, nothing. So like, and then I lost three fights in a row. And like, that was kind of like, so obviously like, I didn't really understand how to handle that because like I lost one and I got down on myself and started doubting myself. And like that bled into the next one, you know, that bled into the next one and it wasn't you know it took like a lot of like dude like what is going on like I know that what I'm capable of doing you know I know I'm capable of winning and beating everyone that like what's going on and it was really just like this like mental block like I went and saw an exercise psychologist to be like dude I don't You know what I mean? Like I came into the UFC with like all these, I guess, like dreams and like possibilities. And then, you know what I mean? Like as soon as I got into the UFC, I started kind of like to like wilt a little bit. Like now everything seemed like so much harder and like
Yeah.
everyone was so good. You know what I mean? I started putting people on a pedestal,
Mm.
to where like when I was like a young kid, I was like, I could whoop the shit out of anybody. You know what I mean? Anybody, put anybody in front of me and I'll beat them.
Mhm.
Like I got really, really, really good at fighting. And then like mentally, I didn't have it anymore, which makes no sense. You know what I mean? You figure like the better you get, the more confident you get. But like that's not always how it works. I think like just being in an atmosphere, where like we are as athletes, and like this is one thing like athletes are just now starting to talk about. It's like we don't really get that much like positive praise, and not only that, but like there's like 100 good jobs, but then there's like five you sucks, and
Yeah.
like just negative bias that we all have. Like we hold on to that, like we see that and we hear it. You know what I mean? Or you hear, somebody else doing an interview about you, or like commentators talking about you or anything, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
like they're talking about you in a negative way. And like like the best thing you can do is to like never hear any of that shit, because it does seep into your mind and like it does affect you whether you want to believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like it affects all of us. I mean, so for me, like I just got like I was into all that. Like if someone said I sucked, I had to like let them know like I've dedicated my whole life to this. I'm
Mhm.
like, you have no idea what I've been through to get here. Like I would like argue with these people, and now I'm like, when I see it, I just delete it and I forget about it.
Mhm.
Or if like I hear, Ariel Hawani talking shit about me, like I don't, you know what I mean? I don't acknowledge it. I don't like let it into my head, because like I think that changes my perception of myself,
Yeah.
and like you can't do that. And like that is literally the I mean, the physical part of fighting is obviously it's grueling, it's hard, but we can all absorb that. I think what separates like good fighters and great fighters is like just their like belief in their abilities. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I've seen and trained with the best guys in the world, and and some of the best guys in the world like you've never heard of. You know what I mean? Like the best guy that I might ever train with in the gym, he might never make it to the big show, because like he can't handle like the pressures of like what fighting is,
Yeah.
which sounds crazy. You're like, dude, you're telling me like the best guy in the world, the best guy you've ever trained with, didn't make it. And I'm like, literally, I can probably name five guys that are better than anyone I've ever competed against in the UFC. You know
Wow.
what I mean? Never made it to the UFC.
Mhm.
And it's just like they couldn't handle the pressure and like the weight that fighting like presents to people, and everyone handles it different. And like it's like this constant like ebb and flow where you kind of have to find like, you know what I mean, no matter what anyone's saying, and no matter what the odds are, and no matter what all that, whatever the BS is, you just have to like find this like unwavering self-belief and like stay there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like whatever it takes to get there, like figure what that is out, and then stay there. And never let anybody like shake you off that pedestal, because fighting is it's rough, and it's just this weird, it's like the most like I'm painting fighting in a negative light right now, but really like it's awesome. Like I absolutely love it. I love,
Yeah.
because it heightens everything in life. And um like I love doing it, but it is a really, really brutally hard thing. And I've like seen like some really, really tough, really, really good guys like mentally just crack under the pressure uh of what it is to be a fighter.
It's a thrill in the agony.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So a little bit more on like the fighting side of it in your division, which is obviously bantamweight. In your personal opinion, who do you think should be next for the belts?
um I think Marab. I think Marab. I think
Really?
I 100% think that he should be the next guy for the title shot.
Hmm.
And I mean, he just beat Peter Yan worse than anyone's ever beat Peter Yan.
Yeah.
And the only other person that I can think of that I think could legitimately like make a claim for the title would be Corey Sandhagen. And, you know, Corey Sandhagen was like, no, Merab should be next. You
Yeah.
know, he beat everybody, including me. You know, like he's just like he's beating everyone. He's not just like beating people. He's like beating them in like he's like relentless. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean,
47 takedowns.
you watch him on film, and then you know what I mean. Like I've been in the cage with him, and like that's like probably the best shape I've ever been in my life. And like he just doesn't stop. You know what I mean? Like I was in great shape. And granted, I like beat him in the third round, which is something I really didn't see possible, you know, going into that fight. But like, I beat him in the third round because I took half the second round off trying to like catch my breath. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, if anybody can keep up with that guy, especially in a 5 round fight, I'd be really surprised. But, you know, I really think actually it's a pretty good matchup for Sean O'Malley. Like, I feel like Moral's going to have a really hard time getting to him, like hard time reaching him, hard time getting the takedowns because Sean moves really well. I think it, you know, honestly, I think it would be a good fight. Obviously, I think like from a straight entertainment value, there's definitely better fights. The Cheeto Vera fight is actually like entertainment wise, two guys that are probably going to just go out and kickbox each other.
Mhm.
That's a better fight. You know, Cheeto's like a superstar in Ecuador,
Yeah.
you know, well known. Like that fight makes more sense. Like when we're talking like dollars and cents and like what people really want to see.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that's a bad matchup for Sean O'Malley, and I think the UFC wants Sean O'Malley to be the champ. So I actually, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but I could see him leaning towards Merab.
It's interesting that you say that because a lot of people who I've seen online and who I've talked to who watch the UFC and MMA in general think that the Cheeto versus O'Malley fight is actually really competitive and not that it's a bad matchup. Only other than the fact that the mental factor of Cheeto has beaten him before. Because you know how Sean O'Malley does like the O thing
Yeah.
is almost seems like a kind of like an FU to
Yeah.
what Cheeto has done.
Like every single time he does it, it's an FU to Cheeto for sure. And it's a good like branding thing, you know, it gets
Oh
people
yeah.
talking. John O'Malley, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to fight him so bad because we had like we made our debut against the same guy, Tyrion Ware, and
Mm.
like he scraped out, barely beat him. Like everyone was so hot on Sean O'Malley like early on, and I was like, dude, come on, let's go. Like
Yeah.
I did everything I could to get that fight, and it never panned out. Like they had a path for Sean O'Malley, and I was definitely wasn't in that path.
Yeah.
Um, and now like he's sitting like at the top of the mountain, and like if you would have asked me like 2 years ago who I thought the champ would be, like there's six other names that I would say before Sean. Like, and I don't necessarily think that he's going to be like the greatest bantamweight champion ever, but like he did reach the top of the mountain, you know,
Yeah.
and like very few of us do, you know. So kudos to him, because I mean that's no feat, and like he definitely showed like he's a lot tougher than myself and a lot of other you know athletes like me. Like imagine like he's good, he's really good.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely very entertaining to fight or not fight, to watch, even outside of the cage. It's just like a
Yeah,
lot of the videos and stuff.
I don't follow him or anything, so I don't really know what he does outside the cage. But I know people like him. I know like young kids. Oh, dude, young kids. They're like, oh, do you know Sean O'Malley? I'm like, shut up. Like, no, I don't know Sean O'Malley. Like, I actually don't. I actually like these like competitions. I mean, who knows? Him and I might be boys, but like for the sake of fucking fighting, like we, you know,
Yeah,
probably never gonna hang out and be friends.
yeah, and it brings up an interesting point of you saying that too, because you see a lot, especially in the welterweight division. It's like half of the top 10 are all friends with each other.
Yeah.
And it takes like a whole year for somebody to get a matchup.
Yeah, because they're all like buddies and they all train together. I mean, that's kind of like what you see though. Like, if you want to be the best, you have to train with the best guys, right? And so, like, you go somewhere to like train with the best guys, and then like everybody gets better. Well, everybody gets better all the way to the top. You know what I mean? And next thing you know, like, look at Marab and Aljo. You know, Aljo had a big hand in like making Marab really good. Because like when he was just like kind of a raw, uncut, crazy man when they met him, and like, over time, like they, kind of rose together. So there's definitely something to be said about, training with the best guys in the world. And not only that, there's a confidence that you get, there's a confidence that you get knowing that your training partner, the guys that you train with are the best guys in the world. They're the apex of fighting. You're
Yeah.
like, they don't make him any better than this guy right here.
Yeah.
So like when you really train with like super high level guys, you start to realize that like the actual difference in like the number one guy and the number 15 guy or the number 17 guy is like so small and incremental. You know what I mean? Like I've seen guys that are like top five in the world get beat up by some guy that you've never heard of in the UFC. So like they're like it's really, really, it's really crazy. Like fighting's a crazy sport. And on any given day, like, you know, the best guy in the world might be someone you've never heard of.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what makes the sport really exciting too. And and the aspect of, a lot of people have gotten fast tracks to title shots. People will say they're not deserving, or they will say, this matchup doesn't make sense. For example, like Yuri Prohaska versus Glover Teixeira. Yuri had two fights in the UFC before getting a title shot. He beat Volkan Ozdemir, and then he beat Dominic Reyes. And now he's in a title fight with Glover Teixeira. I remember everybody was counting out Yuri for that fight. And
Yeah.
because I think he was, or maybe he was a top contender, but people still, I don't know if you remember, but people still didn't think that he was like that top echelon still,
Yeah.
just because of him not having a lot of experience. And he goes out there
Yeah.
and submits Glover Teixeira in the fifth round of a title fight. Like that, it's moments like that that keep the sport so exciting because you really, truly never know what's going to happen
Yeah.
ever.
Well, I think most people don't know that Yuri had like a ton of like big fight experience.
Yeah, he
And I
did.
know because like I used to watch him in Japan. I had a buddy that fought in Japan and they were always on the same cards. So I like watch Yuri like win the Risen title. So like he already knew what it was to like be on top somewhere else.
Yeah,
Like fighting in front of like 50,000 people in Japan. Like he he wasn't like he was a rookie to the big show. You know what I mean? Like he understood what it was, and like he is a big, big, scary dude.
yeah.
Like he really is. But I think my boy Jamal Hill, when he's healthy, is probably gonna take him out.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess we got to see who wins between Yuri and Pereira. I'm very
I
excited for that fight.
I really think Yuri's gonna whoop him, but
Yeah, I'm honestly I'm rooting for him. Yuri,
yeah,
I love watching Yuri fight. I like watching Pereira fight as well, but the
yeah,
craziness that comes with Yuri sounds
yeah.
and
Yuri's
just all
so
the show.
unorthodox, man. So unorthodox. That guy's he's like a monk slash like assassin. He's just a different dude.
Yeah.
Super nice though. Super super nice, like
Oh
kind.
yeah.
Even like we hung out like a few times, like going to after parties and stuff
Mhm.
in Japan, like before he was in the UFC. And then like when he got to the UFC, I saw him with the PI and he was like he looked at me and like looked again and I was like, "What's up, man?" And he goes, "Oh, Michigan," and like came give me a hug and like he's actually like a super nice dude. But
Yeah.
obviously there's like the language barrier there, but
Mm.
uh yeah, super super kind guy. And that goes for like most fighters, honestly. Like everybody thinks that fighters are like these brutally mean dudes.
Mm.
And there's a few, there's a handful of bad eggs, but for the most part, fighters are pretty down to earth, like normal people
Yeah. And
who just
that's
have.
Yeah, and that's another thing that kind of motivated me to do stuff like this is to show that aspect that a lot of people don't get to see when you're doing interviews on ESPN or when you're doing interviews at a press conference and things like that. Like I don't see a lot of these questions that make the fights feel human because you're
Yeah,
always so wrapped up in, how's your training camp and are you in the
yeah.
best shape?
And that's
Can I bet
right.
money? You're right.
Yeah.
Can I bet money on you this weekend? Are you a good bet? Are you a lock of the card?
It's
Just like
always, it's always, yeah, it's always like the same questions. And then like there's almost like this like you almost have to be an asshole, right? You have to be an asshole. You have to say like something crazy to get like a headline. You know what I mean? So they can like use you in a fucking Instagram reel. You got to say
Yeah.
something. You got to say some dumb, ignorant stuff because and you see that in fighting, and you see it everywhere. Really, it's like the people that are out there saying the most dumb, ignorant shit are the ones that are like being promoted the most, or you know what I mean, doing the most like outlandish shit, like really. And the reality is like social media, and like I hate social media. I hate all of it. But obviously, I don't ever post anything. Like very few and far between. Like when I absolutely have to, or somebody like tells me like, hey, you need to start posting shit again.
Yeah.
Um, like it's like stupidity and like controversial shit is like what gets promoted now. You know what I mean? Like just being like a heel. Like that's
Yes.
like, and I feel like that's just like the easiest way to promote yourself. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I would much rather just be like a genuine good dude than like be the most famous person on TikTok. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
I feel
like
on the same.
I'm not trying to be a freaking Instagram model because like if Instagram gets shut down, then I'm nothing. You know what I mean? I just want to be really good at fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that they're, and I can't sit here and say that the entertainment factor of the heels and things like that isn't enticing to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I also do enjoy the other side of it too, of like seeing that there are still like people who just want to be genuinely themselves. They come in, answer your questions, and they go in there and do their work and
Yeah.
their fight. So
I want to take like who's that football player? Was it Marion Lynch? I just want to like do an interview,
mm,
do like a pre-fight interview, and
yeah.
just every single question they ask me, and just be like, I'm just here to get so that I don't get fined. Like ask you like I'm just here not to get fined. I'm like, are we done? You know what I mean? And just walk out. Like I feel like that actually might get a headline because they like
Yeah.
because that's how the media works. But
Kind of like how I don't know if you saw it with Cub Swanson, where he didn't even talk during his pre-fight interview. He had somebody else talk for him.
that's funny.
He didn't have to answer any questions. That
Not
was
that
that.
move. That move.
hmm
I like
Uh,
that.
so I got two more questions for you. When you kind of touched on it, I can kind of assume what your answer would be. But what is your relationship with Jamal Hill like?
Shit, Jamal and I go way back. I mean, we like we were training together in like some like beat up ass gym 15 years ago. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like because I mean, obviously I'm hurt, he's hurt, so we're like in the PI together all the time, and like it's it's just way it's like crazy how like the world works. You know what I mean? Like there's no way that 15 years ago, if you told me that Jamal and I would be, fighting in the UFC, best fighters from Michigan ever, probably like I would have never guessed that. You know what I mean? Just because
Yeah.
we were like two dumbass kids, like think, thinking that we were going to be good at fighting someday.
Yeah, that's cool. I've gotten the pleasure of meeting him a few times now, once in Vegas back in March. And maybe he's mentioned this to you before, you've heard of it, but the fight promotion in Lansing,
Hmm?
I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it's held at the
PWC?
Lansing Mall. Say it one more time.
PWC?
I think so. I think that's
Yeah,
the name of it.
I fought with those guys once. Yeah,
Yeah, yep. This past year, I've gone to every single event that they've had. So like they had one in January, March, June, and they had one 2 weeks ago. So
yeah,
I'm always out there, and a couple of times I been there, and Jamal Hill was cornering some people there, and I got to talk with him for a little bit. He actually lost his phone, and I was holding it for him. I mean, somebody lost their phone. I wasn't gonna obviously steal it from him.
right.
Um, so yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that you all have a good relationship like that, and going way back, because like I said, there's not a lot of big, well-known fighters from Michigan, and obviously
No,
for myself being Michigan too, can resonate with that, and it's cool. It's cool to get to talk.
yeah. I mean, pretty much from Michigan. There actually are like a few, like Tony Ferguson's from Michigan,
Oh
Kevin Lee's
yeah.
from Michigan.
hmm
Uh, Darren Cruikshank's from Michigan, still lives in Michigan, trained in Michigan, always was always in Michigan. But it's like it's I mean it's really really tough to make it out of Michigan. There's like one kid coming up. Shit. He's a he's in my weight class too. Really good. Probably be in the UFC. Like really tough kid. I can't think of his damn name right now. But yeah, I mean it's like I say, it's really really hard. Like most fighters are from Florida. They're from
Hmm.
Nevada. They're from mostly California. Probably
Hmm.
it's probably fair. And then everywhere else in the world. But yeah, I mean to have like a few guys like that come out of Michigan is pretty crazy because like it's just not like a fight hub. There's just not that much. Like you wouldn't think there's like that much to like grow in Michigan,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's
and
possible.
Jakar Close as well. That's
Yeah,
another
Charles,
fight.
yeah, he's from Michigan. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
We're missing some too. I'm gonna feel bad.
yeah,
There's
but
more.
yeah, I bet. But the moral of the story is there's not too many from around here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's cool. If you remember the name of that fighter that you were trying to remember the name of, just let me know.
Austin Bashi.
Austin Dash. Okay, let me write that one down so I
Tough
can
kid.
look into him.
Like 11-0 or something. He should, I mean, he'll be in the UFC soon, I'd imagine.
All right, and then my last question for you is kind of get a description about where your head is at when you are actually in the cage fighting.
Well, I think, I don't know, like, I mean, you can talk to a million fighters about this, but like most guys I talk to, like, have no, like, they can remember bits and pieces of it,
Mhm.
but you don't really remember a whole lot that goes on in a fight. It's weird. It's like this weird, like, PTSD thing where, like, you can watch it, like, you watch it, you can kind of, like, remember doing a lot of the stuff, but for the most part, everything's happening so fast that you don't really, I don't know, like, you don't really remember it, like, there's not a lot of moments that I like remember in a fight. You know what I mean? Like unless it was like everything got slowed down. You know what I mean? To the point where like I was really thinking about what's going on, but everything happens so fast in a fight. You don't really have time to think.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in a fight, like like everything is like it's like it just takes off like a car crash. It
Mhm.
just happens. It happens so fast, and you're just kind of like, oh, fuck. Like the first question I always ask, like when I get back to like the stool, like in between rounds, is like, did I win that round? Like I have an idea, you know what I mean? But like I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know what it looked like. You know what I mean? I know if I got hit hard or you know what I mean, something's hurt. Like I know that, but for the most part, you're in like this weird like flow state. And then, leading up to the fight, like before, like there's just I can remember like starting out fighting, like I was absolutely terrified, like
Yeah.
just paralyzed with fear before I was gonna go out and fight.
Mhm.
And like as I've done it more, I feel like when I'm at my best is when I'm just like excited to go out there. Like there's really no like there's nerves and there's jitter. Like I'm nervous, but
Mhm.
I'm also like it's not like an uncontrollable nerve. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like taking deep breaths, like trying to like calm myself down or like slowing my heart rate down. I'm just like very present, very like aware of everything that's going on around me and like just ready to like do it.
Yeah.
And like I've noticed that like kind of throughout my like athletic career, like really when I'm at my best is when like we can be getting ready to like walk out to the octagon and like
Mhm.
I'm like cracking jokes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Making fun of someone's freaking haircut or something. Like I'm like that relaxed. And like
Yeah.
that's when I think I perform best. Like I don't really let the moment like take me over,
Mhm.
and like you see that like guys that operate on a high level, like Jordan and other guys like Volkanovski is a guy that comes to mind. Like when it comes to
Mhm.
like having like ice in his veins,
Yeah.
like I watched a video of him like he was like getting ready to walk out and he was like chopping it up with his boys and they're like, "Yo, Volk, you gotta walk," and he was like, "Oh, all right." And then he
Oh
like they
wow.
turn the camera on him and he's like then he starts walking and then he like he's like strutting out, but you can tell he's just like he's not nervous. You know what I mean? He's not nervous. He's not like overtaken by the moment. He's very like calm. And everybody thinks that like going into a fight, you need to be like like just jacked up and like
Yeah.
ready, and that does work for some people, but I think for the most like high performing athletes, like throughout all sports, it's the guys that are just like very present and the
Yeah.
guys that are like understand what they have to do and like there's no emotion, there's no anything, they're just fucking a blank slate. And like when the fight starts, they know exactly what they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's not very, very interesting thing to consider because I talked to Vicente Luque, and one of the questions I asked him was similar to yours, but it was about his fight when he first got knocked out against Jeff Neal. And he gave a very similar answer to you in saying like, oh, like you don't really remember a lot of that when you're in the cage and things. So to say that in the sense of, even in fights where you're not getting knocked out or wobbled all over the place, you still kind of have that like blank, like I don't even remember what happened kind of mindset is interesting to think about. Cause like you even listen, do you find it hard to listen to your corner too while you're in there?
It depends. I mean, if the crowd's really loud,
Mm,
it's hard to like pinpoint like their voice out of like everything that's happening. But like other times there's been fights where I can remember like hearing someone having a conversation.
oh
Like,
wow.
you know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't know, it's like this weird, like out of body experience.
Mm,
Like I'm like in the middle of a fight and I can hear like these people talking about where they're gonna eat for dinner. Like weird shit like that. Like weird shit like that. Like I remember actually I think it was the Aljamain Sterling fight.
mm,
I remember like I was like I walked out first and then he walked out and I was waiting for Aljo to get in the cage. And like I looked across the cage and like I'm just looking at somebody. I'm like, I recognize who they are, but I can't really figure out who they are. And I just have like this 5 second moment where I'm like looking at them, trying to figure out who they are. And then I realize I'm like, oh shit, that's Steve-O. Like that's fucking Steve-O. He's
yeah.
like sitting front row. And I like looked at him and like we just like locked eyes and I was just like, hey. And like it was like this weird moment. And then like I like snapped back to like, dude, I'm fucking you're fighting right now. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like it's just dude, it's like it's a surreal feeling. Like I mean, a lot of people and like fighters, like I was actually like hanging out with a bunch of dudes and like we're talking about like drugs and like why a lot of guys after fighting, you know what I mean? Like turn to drugs. And like my thing was like I'm like because like there's no drug that compares to like fighting. You know what I mean? Like there's no drug that can do to you what fighting can do to you. And like that's why like a lot of guys like start abusing shit afterwards, or maybe during, because they can't handle it. But um yeah, like that was my only reason. I'm like I can't really figure out like you've got to be pretty disciplined to be an athlete. Drugs don't really make sense to me. But then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, it's because like you're chasing that like that high that you get from competing in the cage. Like there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot to take in terms of kind of thinking
Yeah.
about things from a fighter's perspective.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I couldn't even begin to imagine everything that you all go through. But yeah, again, I'm appreciative of experiences like this because it gives me a little bit of sense. Like next time I see some trash stuff online about a fighter, or even if it's you, if it's Leon Edwards, if it's Stipe Miocic, it's like take being able to pull in like that human aspect of it. I think it makes me appreciate what you all do and the entertainment that you put on so much
Yeah, it's
more. So
It's
thank you.
definitely it's definitely helped me like in terms of like like growing up like people talk shit about football players and basically like you're like oh that guy sucks or he had a terrible game or like all this shit. And now I'm just like I would never say anything like that about another athlete. So I'm like, dude, who knows what that motherfucker's going through? You know what I mean? Like, hey, he's just a human being. Like, like when you have a bad day at work, like no one gives a shit. But you know what I mean? Like he has a bad day at work. He's gotta hear about it for the next like 2 months of his life. Like,
Yeah,
and like everyone was just constantly reminding him, like, hey, remember that time you messed up? Hey, you remember
yeah,
that time you messed up? He's like, yeah, I mean, how could I forget it? Like every single person asked me questions about it. You know what I mean? And like that's the reality. And like obviously that's what that's what we do. Like we're athletes, we're in the freaking entertainment business. But I think people need to like really wake up and realize that like we're fucking human beings. We have moms and dads and like people that we care about and people that care about us. And like so like before you just like want to just like throw some like negative shit our way, like bro, I got enough shit to deal with. Like just let it go. You know what I mean? Like do
Yeah,
something better time.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. Well, that is I had a bunch of questions just on a list here, but just
Yeah.
with how kind of how we went, I started diverging and just start asking questions that came to my head. So uh
That's,
say it one more time.
that's the best way to do it.
Oh yeah, I agree. But once again, I want to say thank you for coming on my channel and everything like that. I will send you the link to it when I finish everything so you can see how it looks. And hopefully this isn't the last time we talk. Oh,
Yeah. That's my dog.
what's your
Dinner
dog's
time.
name?
This is Achilles.
Achilles. I like it.
Achilles. Say hi. Yeah,
Yeah, you said
yeah.
it's dinner time.
It's dinner time, and they're like, let me know. They've been like circling my chair for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
want
what
to
you
get a
doing.
dog at some point. I have a crested gecko and I have two corn snakes right now. Those are the pets that I
I
have.
had a snake for a while. Snakes are cool.
They are. They are. They're
Cool.
babies still, so they're real small, but when they get big,
What do you,
I'm excited for it.
what do you feed them?
I feed them. So we at first we were feeding them like frozen pinkies and stuff like that because, like I said, they're still babies. But
Yeah.
that wasn't working out for a little bit for one of my snakes. So we tried it with the live one, and that worked. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
going
That
with
was a
right
cool
now.
thing about having a snake was like feeding it. I had
Yeah.
like I like randomly ended up like someone like gave me a fucking this giant boa constrictor.
Mhm.
It was like 8 foot long. I was just like, what are you gonna do with this? It was cute. It was like huge.
Oh,
And
I
then
had
like
no doubt.
yeah, I was terrified of it. And then like eventually like it would like hang out with me like when I was watching TV and stuff. And
Wow.
it was pretty cool. Yeah, they're cool.
That's pretty cool. That's the level I hope to get to when they get older, is they can just
Yeah.
slither around my
Yeah,
place and watch TV with me.
yeah, they're escape artists, man. I lost that snake like more than once. It's like I gotta get rid of this thing. I can't lose this thing in like an apartment complex. Like this is a big snake.
Yeah, I've only had mine for about 2 months and I've already lost both of them once.
Yeah, they're good at getting out of stuff.
Yes, they are. Well, all right, I won't hold you up too much longer. The dogs got to get fed.
Yeah.
But once again, thank you again for coming on here, and hopefully this is not the last time that we talk.
Yeah, hopefully the next time it's announcing a fight here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Have a good rest of your night.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.